Hi, Kari. Thank you for
Oh,
meeting with
hi.
me today. It's
Good
so
to be
nice that I
here.
get to meet you as your coach. And I'm not sure if you are new to this process, but I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'd like you to share a little bit about you as well, as far as your role and what you're hoping to get from our relationship. So
Mhm.
I'm Tammy Davis. I am an education coach and supervisor. So I work out of Waterville at Educare for KV-CAP. So that's a little about me. I've been in the field for about 30 years. So lots of experience in the classroom, and then really fell in love with supporting adult learners. So that's where my heart is right now. So coaching is definitely something that allows me to work on that skill. So tell me a little bit about you and what your work looks like.
Sure. So I have been in the field of education in some form for, well, yeah, what, 20 something years, 20, a little over 20 years. And I've been in regular ed, I've been in public schools, early care, and recently now I'm a provider in a inclusion preschool program. Um, I think my skills grow all the time. And also there's still some gaps of support that I want to be open to learning more. So I think this will be helpful
Yeah.
to meet in the middle a little bit.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you've heard a little bit about what coaching could be, and obviously being a lifelong learner and someone who sees gaps in our practice as an opportunity to learn rather than a missing skill is definitely makes you ready for this. So I wanted to share a little bit about what the intent is, if that's okay with you. And if you have questions, then just feel free to let me know. So I see this as an opportunity for us to partner in a coachee relationship. And really, it's to build your professional skills, and you would be guiding what it is you want to learn and deepen your knowledge on. So nobody comes to a coaching relationship without already having a lot of great skills and some wonderful foundation in the work that you do. So some people think it's for when you're first learning, but actually it's more for refining those skills. So that's why you're here. You've been assessed, and then your supervisor had asked for you to have direct coaching and said that you showed the readiness of reflective skills, that you were really good at identifying your own needs and self-aware, and that you understood relationship-based partnership work. So when we think about that, does any of that resonate with you or sound new or like familiar to you?
Now that sounds all about right, and it sounds like a process that will work for me. I know I sometimes you run into those moments where you feel like there's just nothing else to try, and
Mm,
um, that's what I want to move past and move through is to see a different idea, a different flexible thinking that I can then attempt and see how it feels. And that's my sort of my learning style too, is to try what we might talk about in real
mm.
time, and then see how it goes. So, to get past just the talking about it to, like, well, let me see if I do say that or do that or move that way or offer that, if that works for me or not. So
Yeah, it sounds like you need to actually practice a skill in order for it to sort of, which I think is true for most people, but I was curious what your learning style was from your perspective. Like what works for you as far as communication. And I think we can get to that a little bit later, if that's okay. Um, so to me, a relationship based means that we're going to have reciprocity back and forth with one another. I certainly have lots of skill and knowledge, but so do you. So it's a true partnership in the sense that you have to guide sort of where we're going. You have the map and I'm the navigator. That's really how I look at it. Like you'll set like where we're going next, and I can help be like, hey, so maybe we should take a right this way, or maybe we are right on track, and you have input in that. So it's definitely not judgment. It's more helping you reflect on things and then seeing where to go next and suggesting along the way. But does that sound reasonable to you as far as what we would be doing?
it does sound reasonable. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I'm excited for this journey too. What I would like to ask you, when I think about starting a relationship, it's really nice to kind of get to know more of the why we chose this work. So I always like to ask, like, if you don't mind, do you mind if I ask a question about what it was that drew you to the field as even a younger person, when you said you've been in quite a few years? So what drew you to this work initially?
Oh,
A
initially,
big question, isn't it?
yeah, trying to think initially, um, So we're talking back to my early 20s.
It's kind of
Initially,
like
I think
knowing
it
your
was,
why, like what was my purpose
yeah,
in that? And sometimes we don't necessarily know until after, right? So hindsight, like you can look at it from now, like, oh, maybe you didn't know at the time and it was like, let's just go with this. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm just
I
curious to know about
think
what
I
your
can more,
experience was.
yeah, it's interesting because I think more clearly I can define the moment that I knew special education, individual differences. Those things seem to rise to a level of interest for me after I'd already been in the field for a while. So I think that I can kind of define that moment. The why of how
Sure.
come I kept going through school was because I was noticing this gap between expectation and who we were kind of putting that direction of not blame so much, but who we were trying to get to own the skill set deficit seemed to be on children and not on systems. And I knew at that point we were missing a piece in this puzzle of we're aiming for a certain thing based on what and
Mhm.
who determines what's so important. And if a different approach is needed, do we have any room in there to do that? And that's where I realized I wasn't quite honed in deep enough into what was meaningful to me. And that shift happened of making sure children have voice, even if they not even if because they are young, that they still have
Right.
voice and that they're part of the team of a classroom community, not just joining your established team. So
Yeah, so
um,
true. I love how you noted like that it's not about the kids deficit, right? And I think so much of what we feel can sometimes be like, how do we solve this problem? And systemic issues are they feel huge to tackle. So sometimes the why is I want to make a difference, right? And how do we do that over time, knowing that it takes a really long time to impact that. So that's awesome. Do you mind if I share mine?
mhm,
Okay,
yeah,
all right, because it's for both of us. We'll get to know each other if that's okay.
I like that.
And build some good trust. Yeah, so I think for me, in all honesty, I was raised in a home childcare, always around children, really loved the developmental processes, not really understanding what all of them meant, but enjoyed those different aspects of age groups. Definitely felt like it was, school was never really hard for me. But I also, at that time in my life, when I was done high school, was like, oh, what, I want to go to college, but, I don't really want to work that hard. So I joined UMF and they had the 2-year associates program, which was great for me. And then fell in love even more because obviously I learned about all the developmental trajectory and why it's important. So from that was all it took for me. And so I think my heart probably guided that more than my brain and my maturity level at the time. And then, of course, it's morphed over the years for me. So it's gone from really preschool age kids to now supporting adults who support preschool age children. So that's my why from before. I'm curious for you why you choose to stay. So that's the other question that I always ask, and I love to think about for me as well. So I'm curious for you, like what's your why now? Like is it the same or has it shifted?
My why now is I'm still learning. I'm
Mm,
still learning from children. So I have got more growth to do in terms of understanding what's meaningful, what works, making those connections.
mm,
And I enjoy having shared experiences with children. It's fueling, it's interesting, it's more rewarding than most positions I've been in. So I like spending my time in that way
love
and
that.
looking through their lens and being with them and experiencing the wonders of things that as an adult I start to lose the
Mhm.
wonder of things.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I see that so much. I know a lot of my work is with adults now, but I have the opportunity to be with children, which is definitely reinforcing and helps me remember why I do the work I do. For
mhm.
me, the why do I stay? I mean, I really fell in love with Head Start programming and supporting lower income families. And I was one myself, and my kids both went through Head Start. So for me, I did all the policy council and being a rep and learned how to advocate. And so it was really my whole life is what it feels like, not just my work. And so that passion has been fun to share with others. And then I love being with the children still, but boy, supporting adult learners, it's hard work, but I absolutely enjoy the challenge of helping them make sure they still know the kids' perspective amongst all the push down for academics that comes. So
Mhm.
it's interesting to balance curriculum with how do we make sure that we're doing best practice and not just throwing that word around, but is it really developmentally appropriate, or and from the kids' lens, not from our lens as the adults. So that's why I stay, and it's never not challenging. So again, it sounds like we have some commonalities with like the lifelong learner pieces. And I certainly recognize my shortcomings very well. And it sounds like you identify quickly like what you want to work on too, which is perfect for a coaching and coach relationship. So I'm really excited for us to do this together. Do you have any questions for me about what this process would look like?
Not really questions. I think as long as you're open, that I don't mind digging right in and then forming questions as they come, and a lot of times the wonders I have happen organically and naturally as the process gets going. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty curious, and I'm pretty willing to ask questions as I know it's there. I'm not going to sit on something quietly and just
Yeah,
hope
perfect.
it doesn't come up. So
So part of my role is to navigate support and then also to navigate how to communicate with you what works for you best. And obviously some of what works for me too. So sometimes I'll do like a shared Google Doc that we would have to sort of just brain dump on thoughts. And then my role would really be to sort of come observe you and then look at those thoughts you had and then think about where would we start and where would you want to start, and thinking about how I'm sure you've developed SMART goals for children before for their individual needs. It's a very similar process, right? Where we would look at what you really want to work on and then where's the tangible place to start that's attainable, and then set a plan from there. So it's a very cyclical process where we would observe and then we would walk, we would either record, or if you want me to come directly in and see, be with you to shadow. There's lots of options that we'll go through at our very first initial meeting to decide what you want to do and what that looks like. And then we'll set the goal, and it's the same process, then reflect. So it's really that simple and then that complex at the same time. So I'm grateful that you could be here with me today, and I'm really excited for us to go on this journey together.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, any last questions before we wrap up?
No,
Okay,
no,
so
I'll see you
if
next
you don't
time.
mind, I'll start the Google Doc, and that learning style sounds like it will work for you. And then as
Yep.
far as communicating, if we needed to verbally communicate or like thought more than just mind dumping, can you share with me about what's the best way to communicate with you as far as either I email, do you want like a personal call? Like what's your preference? And I know work is busy too, so balancing all that can be tricky.
I mean, I think email's the easiest way for an idea or a thought to come to me, and then gives me a chance to either decide if I have time for it or not have time for it at the time,
Yeah.
or even think on it a little bit and pull some ideas together. But I'm also open to phone calls, or I'm actually open if we keep it loose, like whatever makes sense in the moment. I also know you probably do a lot of typing and a lot of writing, and at some point verbally might be more interesting too in terms of communication for you as well. So I,
Yeah,
I
I
think we
mean,
can keep it the flow.
and the beauty of either face-to-face or Zoom is we can at least see body language, right? Which is so much of how we communicate. So that's important to me as well. But I also appreciate email because if I read something and I'm not ready to digest it, like you just said, I can mark it unread and then know it's there. And it also provides us with sort of a log of where we were and what we're doing. So we'll be doing some tracking on that as on my end as well. So, but that kind of will be like, oh, I forgot this. Let me go back and see, what was that again? So I like the idea of doing different modalities if that works for you.
Yep, that works.
So
Yep.
when,
And I think we could just leave it as simple as, if there's a question I have, I could even pose, do you prefer a call or
yeah,
text, or
okay,
just meet next time? Yeah, we can just be open to asking each other those type of
yeah. And
questions and stuff.
I am very transparent in the work I do. So if something doesn't work, I would share that with you professionally, and I want you to do the same for me.
Will
So,
do.
so our next meeting, we will go over our partnership agreement, which details out exactly where you want to start and what type of coaching supports will be most effective for you. And we can take a look at, so I'll make the form, Google Drive doc, send it out to you, and then we'll start doing some thinking together on there. So I would want that to be more of your work, and then I can maybe add some comments in or even some ideas or thoughts, and then we can go from there if that's okay.
Sounds great. Looking
Awesome.
forward to
Well,
it.
we're off to a good start. And thank you so much for taking time with me
Yeah.
today.
Sounds great. See you soon.
Thanks.